Okay, tribute to Fran Matera, Golden Age artist, take 4. Take 5. Take 4. Fran Matera was born December 9th, 1924, and died March 15th, 2012, at the ripe young age of 88. Last Monday would have been his 100th birthday. I would love to have celebrated his 100th birthday with him. Fran was a dear and old friend of mine. He was preceded in death by his wife Pat. He is survived by his sons Fran, Guy, Fran Jr., Guy, and his son Chris, his wife Debbie, and grandchildren. He was born in Connecticut. He passed away in Safety Harbor, Florida. He went to New York City when he was 18 and started working for Quality Comics. He was one of the first projects I know he worked on was Doll Man. He took over Doll Man from Will Eisner, who went into the military. Also, he did some work. He was sent out to help out other comic book companies who were shorthanded or were running behind. One project I heard him talk about was the guy who owned Quality Comics says, "Go help these guys out." And he walks into this, he's telling me the story like I wouldn't know who these people were. He walks into this building, and it was called, for a comic book called Boy Commandos. This is before DC Comics, who owns the rights to Boy Commandos now. And this guy walks up and goes, "Hi, I'm Joe Simon. This is Jack Kirby." Like I wouldn't know who Joe Simon and Jack Kirby were. And I'm geeking out as Fran's telling me this story. And I was like going crazy. He also worked at Treasure Chest. He did a 1959. He also, worked with St. John's Publishing, doing a comic book called Fighting Marines, which ironically in 1947, during the World War II, he joined the Marines, but mostly as an honor guard. He did a lot of promotional stuff. He did the artwork and the comic strips and stuff that promote whatever they call that, to make things better for the stuff. He was part of the honor guard for Franklin Delano Roosevelt on the ship. They were eating dinner in the mess hall, the president with the men, when the president stopped the meeting, the food, and announced they had just dropped. Fran was right there with the president, when they had just announced they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Fran has, I don't know if it's ever been published, a beautiful picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a headshot he'd drawn. It was brilliant. And he also worked on Charlton Comics. Him and Dick Giordano were two of the first comic book artists to work for Charlton. He worked on Gabby Hayes, it was called, and Speed Demons. In 1959, he worked on a comic strip called a comic book for Catholics, called Treasure Chest. Comic book character called Chuck White and his friends. He did that till 1971. Treasure Chest, I think Alex Raymond and a bunch of other famous comic book artists was working on this magazine over the years. 1978, I'll get back to his comic strip. work in a minute. He worked on a comic book for Marvel Comics called The Boy Who Cried Hulk, which dealt with one of the first storylines on child abuse. One of the first storylines. It was he inked the pages by pencil by Bron Wilson, and then a year later, a few months later, he did Tarzan annual. He inked the pages of Sal Buscema. He a lot's not known about his comic book work. He did a lot of comic books, but most of it was like ghostwritten. The latter stuff that he did a project for me that never made print because I had some problems with the pages. But it was a Christian comic book project. But Fran was brilliant. In 1947, he assisted on Carrie Drake. He did a comic strip called Nicky Dare. In 1956, he took on Nero Wolfe and Rex Morgan. In 1984, he took over Steve Roper and Mike Nomad, which he did till, I believe, 2004. Neat story about that. He was the guy who wrote Steve Roper and Mike Nomad died, and Fran started taking over the writing of it. And at one point, I jokingly said to him, "Why don't you let me try it, writing it?" I said, "I don't even want credit for it. Just let me ghostwrite it." I had a friend of mine, he and I came up with a concept for what would turn out to be the final storyline of Steve Roper, Mike Nomad, where revealed Steve Roper's character, his wife was put into a mental institution not long after he was introduced. And he was turned out, we revealed it near the end of the last storyline that she was pregnant at the time, but nobody knew that. That wasn't part of the original storyline, but something we made up for the storyline we were doing. And we introduced his daughter. And we were going to try and create a new next generation for Roper, the Steve Roper comic strip. I think they were going to introduce Mike Nomad's nephew or something like that. Create a new generation. But Fran Matera got into a fight about money with King Features. They weren't paying him decent. They weren't paying him well, and he wanted more money. And they canceled the book. And so what had been months worth of pretty good storyline, I think, they canceled it, and I had like 2 months worth of storyline. I had 6 months to a year's worth of storyline to finish in 2 months. And it just and then what the aggravating thing about knowing Fran Matera was all this time for years was nobody, even a lot of people in the comic book industry, had no idea who he was. And I was part of a Facebook page, Yahoo page for Charlton Comics, and I thought I couldn't find a list of people who knew anything about his credits, and I put a challenge out there asking, can someone out there give me a list of every comic book that Fran Matera ever did for Charlton Comics? At least I can get that much out of it. Within, I think, 24 hours, I had a whole list of known work that Fran had done for Charlton. And I thought, well, this guy either doesn't have a life or is good. I had several people, I think, give me answers. And I said, okay, how about this? Is there anybody out there that can give me a list of everything that Fran Matera has ever done that we know of? I had an answer within 48 hours. And this guy worked for Roy Thomas's magazine called Alter Ego, who I at that time, I'm sorry to say, but after that I'm glad to say, because I loved the magazine while it was in print. Because I got it for a long time after that. It was a tribute to Silver and Golden Age comic book artists and writers, especially those like Fran nobody's ever heard of. He sent me a list. Ended up, a few months later, he started doing an interview with Fran that never got finished. Then a few months later, when I heard about, I remember saying Roy Thomas was the editor for this comic, owner of this magazine. I was a huge Roy Thomas fan from his All-Star Squadron, the JSA, the Invaders. I geeked out every time I heard that name. And a year or so later, Fran calls me up going, guess what? Roy Thomas and I just spent several hours on the phone. He finished the article. It's going to be in the magazine. I fanboyed out like you wouldn't believe. I said to Fran, Roy Thomas is one of my heroes in the industry. And Fran did not know that. And a few days later, I got an email from Roy Thomas thanking me for getting me in contact with Fran. And about 12 years ago, I could not get Fran Matera to go to a Comic Con for the life of me. But not long after that convention, I finally got him willing to go and do conventions as a guest. And for a long time, we got him there for many conventions. And it was so neat to see him at these conventions. I used to enjoy going to these conventions. I don't do them as much anymore. I think I've been to maybe 2, maybe 3 after Fran's death. It just doesn't seem the same anymore. It just seems like I've lost something with him gone. But that's it. That's the story of probably in my opinion, one of the greatest artists of the Golden Age that you may have never heard of. If you want to see what his artwork looks like, look up The Boy Who Cried Hulk, especially that one. And anything from Steve Roper and Mike Nomad from 1984 to 2004. You'll see some great artwork. And like I said, if you like what I'm doing, I'm gonna, just like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.